Aboriginal and Strait Islander people who may be participating in this webinar. I pay my respects to the elders past, present, emerging, and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal people and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of this country. As you can probably hear, we've just started recording this session, so if any of you are uncomfortable about that, you can mute your videos. Yes, we just keep these videos for the KMLF community. I guess a little bit of housekeeping. Basically, Lynn is going to run through her presentation, and we will sort of keep questions until the end, and we'll certainly keep enough time for you guys to go through questions. You can pop things in chat, but it's quite a small group, so hopefully, you know, just we'll run it that way. Also, looking at the group here, I think we all pretty much know each other, and I think also know Lynn very well as well. But if any of you don't, Lynn has had a long history in knowledge management. She's worked at Bupa, at Telstra, at ANZ, so sort of all of the blue chips, or a number of them. She's also been an independent consultant in KM in about the last 3 or 4 years. I think you've started that up, Lynn. And also, I didn't realise this until I had a chat to Lynn last month, but she's also been a sessional lecturer at RMIT, doing sessions for the KM group there on her experiences. And Vanessa. Yeah. With Vanessa. And you actually had a nice thing that I'm just going to read out, if I can still got it up on my, I've still got LinkedIn here. I thought it was nice that you put this in your about section. You said, I guess lecture once per semester at RMIT on the topic of my KM journey. I find the lecturing really motivating, and some of the questions that are asked often prompt me to reconsider how I deliver the work I do and what change management tools I use. So it's mutually beneficial, which is really nice. And also, I guess, a segue into our KMLF community, because we very much kind of have that kind of, informing each other that goes on as well, which is really lovely. And also another thing I didn't know about Lynn is that she actually has a master's in business IT, which is very impressive. Lynn, handing it over to you.
Thank you. Cool. Yeah. So you all know me, and I have got a deck because, we all like to make a deck, and we will play a little bit of Chatham House rules if that's okay. I know we all do that. So you know where I work, but I haven't put any of that in the slide. So, which is all good. I have got a presentation. May I have presentation mode? Share screen. There it is. Hello. Sorry, I should do that. Oh, you've disabled screen sharing. May I have some? Who's got the power to give me some?
Brad.
I do. All right.
Yeah. I've got the screen there, and I can see you guys, and I can see the chat.
Multiple participants can share screen simultaneously. All yours.
Yeah, but I've got a nice 35-inch wide curved screen, so it's all good.
So Lynn, just for the Twitter feed, is your limitation is what I can share about your presentation? But that
you can share whatever you like. You can share whatever you like.
Yeah.
I am not mentioning where I work. That's all. So I guess I call it a call center environment, if you like, but. Yeah, Twitter. Yeah, cool. Most of it you're probably pretty good at. Share screen, screen to. Let's see how that looks. I might have to change that to landscape. Advanced. PowerPoint. I'm gonna have to change the screen around. Okay, I can do that. All right, let me swap the screen. I was trying to be clever here. Swap my slideshow. Put you over there. That means I'm going to minimize that and find the Zoom chat. Oh, the technicalities of it all. All right, let's do share screen again. We're sharing that one. All right, how does that look? Oh, look at all your people over there. That's cute. I'll have to find the chat, but yeah. All right, you all can see my screen?
Yep.
Yes, thank you. All right. I was trying to put together about, a little bit of general thing about me, sort of, but I've got a few of those things. So yes, I like sharing, and I love sharing, but I also love getting the feedback on the things that I share. I don't always anyway profess to know it all, and so I whilst I love sharing, and I will jump in and try and help, and then sometimes I realize that I've probably bitten off more than I can chew, or that my idea, whilst probably good, there's other voices that are in the background there telling me there could be other ways to do this. So yes, I love to share, but I am willing to hear what everybody else or other people have to say about things. So what we're going to talk about is working in a call center during a crisis. So and dealing with old issues, the same old issues that we all have in a remote working way. So yeah, I think I got this right. Now let me get this presentation to work properly with a keyboard. Oh yeah, there you go. So I did call it the best laid plans of Mice and Lynn. I did find the original quote from ye oldie Robert Burns, and I don't have a Scottish accent. Does anyone have a Scottish accent they can do for me? But basically he's saying that we have plans and we can try and stick to those plans, but there is always something that will mess it up for us, even though we hopefully that we get a good outcome. And I'm still hopeful of that in the end anyway. So good old Robert Burns. Who knew? I now summarize myself in a picture of many of them. So I've studied and I've won awards and I drink a lot of coffee and a bit of alcohol. Is the alcohol still? Oh yeah, he's there. I've jumped out of a plane with a man strapped to my back, or was I strapped to his front? Anyway, me in summary. Unfortunately, we lost our little dog a couple of weeks back, but I've still got 2 dogs and 7 cats in the house. We like taking photos of birds, and there is a bay down on the coast near Warrnambool named after my family. So there is me in summary. Oh, and I bake cake sometimes too. All right, where I'm working, the call center environment. So yeah, major health issue that we know about. And so the call center environment was just it started as an advice line. In fact, before this current health issue, there was a communicable diseases line run by this organisation that had, depending on what diseases were happening in the state at that period of time, they would have a call at the other end. So it might be, there's been an outbreak of tuberculosis, which does still happen. And so they get referred through this communicable diseases line through to a medical group in Royal Melbourne Hospital, or measles and all those sort of other outbreaks that do happen, health outbreaks that do happen. So there was still there was already a phone line in place to answer those sort of queries about health issues. Then when 2020 occurred and this major health issue broke out, there was an advice line because of Victoria's rules around how we can travel and the places we can do and how many people we can do it with and all that sort of stuff. So it was a small advice line that started off giving advice around the directions that had been created by the leaders of the day. As this demand for calls got bigger and bigger, rather than employing more people into the organisation, they decided it was a better option to use experienced call centre third parties to act on authority of this organisation to help deal with that increasing demand. So there are a number of well-known I think they call them business process organizations who Sercos and the Hello Worlds and all that sort of stuff who are already call center environments who have been contracted to take some of those calls and give advice or help with bookings or different things that seem to happen. In 2021, with the opportunity to get a vaccination towards helping with this health issue, the number of calls have increased dramatically. And as a reflective piece of work, when the announcement for eligibility for people in the 40 to 49 bracket occurred, which I believe was on the 27th of May this year, the willingness and the opportunity to have that happen brought down the phone system. It was unprecedented for Telstra and unprecedented obviously for everyone reflective of that for the number of calls that came in. I believe there was 1.4 million call attempts, 400,000 odd got into the phone system, but they hadn't really considered how many. So I think only about, it might have been something like 10,000 calls were answered on the day. So the numbers were quite unprecedented. So so huge numbers of things that have information surrounding it that this environment needs to deal with. So when this role came up, I was slowly, I guess, ramping down on a learning job that I was doing at the a refinery in Geelong, and I saw this job advertised, and an initial ad, it was advertised at around the middle to end of March, and advertised as a contact role until June the 30th. And then I looked at what was in the roles and responsibilities for with the attached thing, and I'm like, right, you want all that to happen in 2 months? That should be interesting. But nonetheless, I decided I would apply because it seemed like it was pretty interesting. And so it seemed like it would be pretty hard, but with my job interviews, I discovered also that the fixed term contract had been extended out to December 31st this year, and that my going into the interviews before that was saying, right, I could probably do something very quick and dirty for you in a couple of months, but also put together the strategy and the plan for what might need to happen going forward to help deliver some of those responsibilities that you want done. So the first instance was like, right, but anyway, that's a lot of those things are one of the things I'm trying to do, so which is fun. It's always difficult to find a place to start, and obviously that's often around a knowledge audit, and that's where I usually start. But way back when I did my master's, this strategic gap thing, this flow was taught to me by Vanessa. I hadn't thought about it before, and since then it's also been the way that I think about where I want to start when I go into an organization. I often go in when knowledge management systems have already been built. And so often this thing is, we've got the knowledge gap that we have is we want to be in this place, but we're only here. So I might be not looking at the beginning of a knowledge system. I might be looking at it at its middle and trying to deliver something that they plan to do in their 2-year, 5-year plan. But this is the way that I like to try and focus myself when I go into an organization. So this is where I did start and hope to start. And what I hoped to offer them was a plan for the longer term. And as I said, something quick and dirty as a quick win. So I can see that I've got a spelling error there, which frustrates me immensely. I wish I'd seen that before. So yeah, that was my plan, by looking at what is their plan, what is their strategy, what did they hope to achieve, and what do they have in place now, and what is the knowledge needed. What knowledge do they have now? What knowledge do they need, and how I'm going to get there? So this Zach, I believe, is the author of this plan of looking at knowledge gaps, and I still like it as a way to start the process. So let's talk about the lay of the land. All right. So when I got there, information was being shared in the call center via PowerPoint packs. They had, let's say, 3 key areas. One was the bookings area for the vaccinations. One was the information and directions area. And then there's a whole lot of external outbound contact campaign type activity that occurs, of which there are many different contact types that did occur in the organization. And all of this information was being shared via PowerPoint packs. So, at the 11 o'clock press conference would occur, and a grand announcement would be made of what might change from today or tomorrow or the next day. And they were quite often daily updates. And so that meant that the information pack needed to be updated and sent out to all the right people, and potentially may have some training in it, but often not. It was often just a pack, and people had to absorb what was in there and work out what the changes were, because obviously no version history or anything like that in a PowerPoint pack, or an obvious one anyway. And the same with the bookings. The eligibilities change quite frequently. Eligibilities, the big one, the age groups, the type of vaccination you might have, they all change quite frequently. And in fact, over the last few weeks, it's been almost a daily update because of different changes and announcements that occur. So, or the different sites where you could go and have a vaccination changed as well. And that's all contained within this pack. So the packs could be, I've got 200 page, they've been up to 300 and 400 page sizes. They've managed to reduce some of that down. But as you can see, there's a lot of information that goes out it's still, I guess it's online, but in a pack that gets sent out to each of the agents. I think there's about 30 odd campaigns that are occurring. So 30 external outbound contact campaigns that are occurring at the same time. So there's lots of packs related to that as well. So lots of information being shared initially. So I'm just going to have a look. There's lots of chat going on. I'm just going to click on my chat window. Cool. I think the challenge is that at the beginning also, they were only having dedicated agents, call center agents, working like one. If you were employed to do vaccination bookings, that's all you did. If you're employed to do information sharing about directions, that's all you did. If you're employed to do those external facing things, that's what you did. They've now started to cross-skill these people so that they can, in times of increased calls, they can, pick up, all right, it's a bit quiet in information, let's pick up, 20 people and put them in the bookings queue to help alleviate some of that, the quantity of calls that are in there. So that's part of also the triggers that we're looking here. We don't want to have to look at different packs in there. So my quick and dirty win was, and the key or most important thing was the vaccination bookings. So I suggested that that perhaps that would be something that I could look at in the first instance. It was very, very stressing. All right, now let's click on the right window. All right, here are my challenges. All of those different packs, all of those call guides were managed by different teams who often didn't communicate well with each other either. They were also, when I first got there, talking about a formal knowledge management system. And so there was a couple of demos and there was waiting on decisions and everything was big and urgent and crazy, daily changes, announcements, everything was really important and urgent. And I guess, it's not often in a job you get to say that if we don't get this fixed, it could impact someone's life. But in fact, this is the kind of environment where that is a consideration. So while it was all big and urgent and crazy, it's also stuff that is meaningful and has purpose, which is not often that you get to do in a job. So my decision making was around what could I do until they made a decision about a knowledge management system. And so I suggested I could put maybe one of those PowerPoint packs onto SharePoint Online. It was a semi good idea. I then we demoed that to a couple of the executive leaders after we created a few pages. That's not it, obviously, that's a SharePoint Online template, but I guess we sort of laid it out a bit like that. They really thought it was really cool. So obviously did too good a job because we're now putting it all in SharePoint Online, all of those packs. So I do have an excellent content writer who's working with me, and we've been manically since, I think, May the 19th, we got the system, manically putting in content madly. We were hoping to do some testing and go live of the one pack early. That's not quite where we're at, but so far I think we've got 600 pages of information in this SharePoint Online site. So, and getting really good feedback from some of the early testing and things, and the visibility that's had around the place. But wow, it's a big job. SharePoint Online, it's good and could be better. There could be much more things I could be doing with it, but it's a sub-site in a larger organizational tenant. And so some of the things that I might like to change and add and put on in the background, and even our color scheme, I can't really do because I'm in the same tenant or the same intranet, if you like, as everybody else in that same organization. So I am a sub-site, and so I only have a partial access to things that I might want to fix and change in there. But what I've given you down here is a screenshot of the main sort of activities that I could look at adding in there. So I can add text boxes and image boxes and quick links and news items, and even link to people inside our domain and things like that. So it's got some of the enough of the tools that we can put in place to make it a page work rather than the documents. We're not trying to put the documents in it, we're trying to create the pages. So right, so there is a challenge, and the challenge is that I said, yeah, something quick and dirty. And so what I would have liked to have done as part of that strategic thinking at the beginning was pull together a governance framework, think about what sort of processes we need to put in place, think about hub and spoke model. I might want to, I'll set up all the system and the categories and the site naming and the look and the feel and the templates and all that sort of stuff, and then hand that out to the subject matter experts and the content owners to update or create that content once we've got the bulk of it happening there. So what we've done is done things a little bit backwards in that we've started creating everything to show, I guess, show that it worked, but I haven't actually had built into place that high level strategy or that governance model that I would have liked to have in there. So whilst I would normally like to think about that and have the time to do it, this was very much thinking on your feet. Having said that, the start small and show value element of what we're doing worked. They loved it. So yeah, okay, I still SharePoint online, but and I've had pretty good feedback. As I said, I had a demo again today with another team that we're trying to get them to take on doing this, and they really loved it, but they still want to wait a little while. They're quite a bit scared. So the other thing that I have a challenge with is measurement. So SharePoint Online reporting for a communications website is a little bit rudimentary. So it'll give you how many people have visited the site in the last 7 days, what were the items the pages that they looked at or the documents they looked at, and I think it says how long they stayed on the page, and then they'll give you a list of the most viewed and if there were anything was shared externally. So it's quite rudimentary. What I am trying to do is get some more detailed reports in there. So as I said, we're part of a larger tenant. So the SharePoint system owners can have access to the audit log, but because of this larger tenant, and there are of course some limitations to SharePoint. So I think there's only so many events in a day. I think it's 5,000 events in a day that gets recorded in an audit log. So I may not get a complete picture, but I want to know who's logged in and who's looked at what page and if what searches they did and if they found what they were looking for, and more importantly, if they didn't find what they're looking for. Because if they didn't find what they're looking for, I'm missing some content, or I'm missing a tag, or I'm missing something, or I spelt something, they've spelt something wrong and I should put that in. So yeah, there are some really important things that I like to look at to help me feel like I've made some success, apart from the feedback from the users in the end. Like buttons are there, we've got the ability to add comments and things like that. So yeah, some of the reporting that I would like to have to show value and success, I'm still waiting to see if I can get access to, because it's part of a bigger piece inside the organisation. My other major challenge is that I've had since sometime in August a bit of a split focus. So we're a contact centre short-term COVID-19 response is our team, but we're I guess we're a short-term operations group trying to get in there and help set up that contact centre support and help. And so part of that focus has been also around there's a role for what they call the campaign manager, and the guy that was in that role and contact centres open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. They were trying to avoid some of the problems they had last year of burnout for working. You don't want people to be working 12-hour days, 7 days a week. It's open 24/7, or not 20. Some of it, actually, a couple of them are 24/7, but 7 days a week, 8 to 8. They did try and make it a bit longer for a few days at the peak in May, but so. This guy wasn't getting a break. He was working 7 days a week and often working the 10 to 12 hours a day. So they asked if people would be willing to twin support the other people. And I was asked if I would help with campaigns. And I said, sure, I'm absolutely happy to help. So what ended up happening is I shifted my days from Monday to Friday to Tuesday to Saturday. And so I could cover his reporting elements on Friday and Saturday. He could have a weekend on Friday and Saturday, and my weekend would be Sunday, Monday. But what has also since happened is that instead of it just being like a morning session, that then I could then concentrate on building my knowledge system in the afternoons, it became an all-day job. So I was basically only working 3 days on the knowledge system and then 2 days on this campaign stuff. gee, I learned a lot. I learned how the Genesis phone system works. I worked out what sort of reporting our executive wants. Worked out, how the queues were set up and how they put which workers, how they sort of did some forecasting and projections of how many people they needed on the phones, and even how they updated scripts and things inside the Genesis telephone system. And that's been really cool. But it's only as of this week that I've now gone back to 5 days, Monday to Friday, and being able to focus solely on the knowledge system there. So great learning experience and loved it, but wow, it was full on, totally full on, and even more stressing because this is uploading data lists into the telephone system. These data lists were for contacts for people who have been tested positive, basically. So those phone calls that happened, I was responsible helping to put those data lists into the telephone system. So, and the related scripts. And as you've probably heard, there's been a few challenges from time to time there with that as well. But yeah, pretty amazing sort of stuff. So challenge for me, challenge generally. So yeah, as I said, whilst it's crazy busy and full on, it's also exciting. Like I feel like I've got something with real purpose and real value, that instead of our contact center agents relying on different packs for answering calls, that we're going to put it in a singular space to help them, make it easier for them to give the correct information to the people who are making the telephone calls, asking for information or making a booking, etc., etc. The call center agents, those that have had previews, are also very excited. They've been challenged by looking at all of that. And yeah, I'm really happy about where I'm going with this pack, despite the fact that I'm using SharePoint Online. So it's pretty cool. So I'm hoping to go live in a couple of weeks. So I'm sure I'd have more things to update you with. So, but yeah, building project plans and test plans and change plans and comms plans, and even then talking about what we'll do after we go live, and also looking at how we train and support and communicate with our subject matter experts and our content owners. So all of those things need to be put into play as well. And I don't need to tell you guys, but knowledge managers, God, we do everything, don't we? So it's pretty full on.
Yeah.
It's pretty full on. Whew, yeah, gee, I can talk a mile a minute, can't I? All right, lots of questions I can already see. Start small, show value. Yes, absolutely. The quick win. I love quick win. I love start small. I like talking about that. That's what my guest lecture with Vanessa is also to help the students think about when they're writing a strategy paper, that they shouldn't look at implementing knowledge management inside the entire organization on the first go. It's all about, showing some value and showing success. What else have I read? What are the reasons people are scared about SharePoint Online versus PowerPoint and having issues with people potentially? Yeah, that's exactly it. So the PowerPoint packs, when they post them out, obviously we hope that the right people get the pack that they're using and they're referring to the right version. But as I said, when there's nearly daily updates, there's always a chance that, maybe you happen to be in the bathroom when the Teams notification came through, said that there's a new pack in your email and you should have a look at it, or they don't make it in time to get part of the morning updates or the morning briefing to say that there's been a change. So yeah, by having it all in real-time updates in SharePoint Online, it's very much going to be the information that you're sharing is the right information now. The challenge is, what is the challenge? The challenge is, most people are very supportive of it yet. And I'm actually quite surprised that they hadn't already been there. So it's quite funny to come into an organization that had a small call center environment and didn't have something in place. Because they've always had a small sort of call center environment, but not like 10 people or something, always very small. So yeah, it was interesting that they hadn't already had something in place. Cool. Any other questions for me? Hit me. What do you think? Oh, it's crazy.
So, Lynn, it's Stu French here. When at a previous role, I did a similar thing and had a call center, and we changed from a locked multi-page Microsoft Word document to a wiki with lots of pages where people could keep it continually updated. we had to pry that Word document from the cold, dead hands of the previous owner. How did you go with that? Were the previous people who were in charge, did they feel a loss of control, and how did you manage that situation if it happened?
Yeah, so because our go live's still in a couple of weeks, this is still stuff that we're working with. So the bookings team, I've had quite a few demos with them, and it's sort of like mutual back patting sort of arrangement going on, where they say, Lynn, we've looked at the site, we love it, it looks amazing. And then I say, well, thank you very much. It's based on all the amazing work that you guys have done. And they're like up at 10 o'clock or online at 10 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock in the morning, updating these packs and sending them out. But they're still sort of like, oh, I don't know, the version control, the version history, it's only an image, you know, I'm not quite sure, I don't feel comfortable. So there's going to be quite a bit of hand holding. So we're just continuously still updating as they release a new update. We will just keep updating. I've got some scheduling, some more hand holding guidance and sessions with them next week about how to update SharePoint Online, which is not hard. There's a few little quirks with it, but it's not that hard to do. It's not unlike a Word doc. So it's the continuous hand holding. The demo that I did today, which is about the directions and instructions, was with, often that's a group of lawyers. They seem willing, but they're also saying, let's wait still a little bit longer until, you know, we're all in the one sort of, same level of instructions, you know, both the areas of the state were in the same thing, so there's not so much to update and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think it's just continuous conversations that we're going to have with them and just encourage them. There'll be lots of hand holding, and hopefully then by the end of December will be happy and they will take it on as their own sort of happy activity. So yeah,
thank you.
Feedback. April's asking about feedback. Absolutely. So my own manager has a challenge with allowing comments on the pages and feedback. So we've built a feedback form. Every page has a button to this feedback form. We've secretly turned some of the comments on some of the pages just because we want to get some feedback from some people in there. So rather than officially saying you can use comments on the page, because I'm not even 100% sure what the notifications are around comments anyway. I know we get a notification when someone likes a page, but I wasn't quite sure about the comment stuff. But yes, we've definitely built feedback in. I want it to be as transparent as possible. So as well as the feedback form, I've actually created a bug list, if you like, a page for that, so that everything that comes back in feedback will go into this bug list and will stay displayed on the page about, you know, what it was, who sent it in, where we've referred it on to, has it been changed, and sort of like make sure that we chase up the content owners and the SMEs about that. So we want to keep everything as transparent as possible. I want the agents to know that we're listening to them, that we're being responsive to them if they have a question about the content, or if they have a question about, a decision or an instruction or anything like that, that they can send the feedback, that will record it, and that will chase it up for them, hopefully, and get them a response as soon as possible. So preferably not while they're on the phone to the client. That goes usually through their team leaders, but we don't call them clients, we call them citizens, even though some of them may not be citizens, but that's a whole nother conversation. So we're trying to keep it as transparent that they'll keep all their feedback, because it's their content, they've got to use it. There is some of the stuff, some of the instructions are meant to be read verbatim, so they can't go off script. Some of the booking processes have to be verbatim as well, so we've made that very clear. But where it's not meant to be verbatim, or doesn't have to be verbatim, if you like, we've allowed for a bit of fluidity there, so they can be a bit conversational with the caller. So
hi there, Lynn. It's Christoph Hewitt here, if I can chime in. I'm very interested in change fatigue in groups of staff, and obviously very important chaotic environment. You're trying to implement change here. Did you find any specific learnings about how you were able to message to the staff, how you were able to capture their attention? Did it help that things were changing at a constant pace? Did the VUCA environment actually assist you in any way? Or how did you manage capturing people's
understanding? So this has just been constant change. It just has been. So we do burn through people we absolutely burn through people. So, and they'll have peaks and troughs. And this is even the COVID-19 response people. Sorry, I've said that out loud. But the people that are working to help support that are also burning out and changing. So some of them, they'll last a few weeks, some 6 months, some 12. But yeah, it is because it is such a volatile environment and such a environment of constant change. So the agents at the other end are also having the same challenges. I guess some of that is about, can they see the value that they're adding? And it's been really interesting with the different outbound calls that occur. Some of them are much more friendlier than others, if you like, or supportive and more engaging. And so the agents that have been on those more supportive and engaging are all of a sudden going, I'm really enjoying doing these calls. Whilst they are challenging, I'm adding value. So that whole thought process and reminder of, you're doing an amazing work. We know the numbers are crazy. We know that the call numbers are crazy. And, some of the work you're doing is challenging, but also it's so very important. That purpose stuff is definitely coming into play. But absolutely, change fatigue is a big problem because of the consistency of the change. And, us on the outside who are observing all this and living it as external people, we're all tired. So you can imagine the people that are on the front line there, how tired they are. I think about the front line first responders and all that sort of stuff. The change fatigue just is, I'm guessing it's horrifying. But yeah, so having said that, the real-time updates and the ability to see stuff changing, perhaps even during the day, rather than waiting for a PowerPoint pack to arrive at the end of the day or in the next morning or whatever, they are very excited to be part of that and that change and having that happen for them, and the ability not to have to rely on these packs and to be able to feed back. The early testing that I've done has been very positive. So I'm hoping that we'll get a pretty good response for it, which is great.
Thanks, Lynn.
Nick, did you have a question?
Oh, sorry.
Hit me.
Hello, Lynn. Oh, okay. Can I ask first? I don't know whether we are there. Okay.
Go ahead,
just a quick question. You mentioned that when you first start the contact center, they somehow manage different tasks. So each has their own responsibility, but somehow they merge everything together. So in theory, that is good because everybody can answer any call. So my previous company have something similar. The problem is the area that each contact center staff, before that, they're quite specific. Now, once you merge everything together, is that like too big a job for any contact center staff? And how about the training? Because that also means instead of just focus on one area, they need to focus on every area. And my previous experience is sometimes it can be too big. And my previous company actually, after a merge for a couple of months or maybe half a year, they break it back as the original form. So do you see that happen in your area?
I believe so. So we're looking at the cross-skilling stuff. It was to try and, give a bit of, I guess, variety in the type of work. Answering an appointment call can be a little bit tedious. So having these other call types happen for them obviously was giving variety and also enabling us to move people to where the call volumes were. But there are some people that are really good at one type of call that are not so good at other types of calls. And because some of that is managed by the third party call centers themselves, they can help make some of those decisions. So when we say to them, right, we need extra people or 10 extra people to work on this, they'll decide within themselves based on the willingness and experience of their own teams about who can go in there. So, and we have got some of that sort of, we're trying to build a singular sort of training goal and an understanding and skill set requirement for our people, because we know that there are some people that do say one type of call better than others. As for training is, well, induction is predominantly one day because these packs are what they're relying on in some respects as, their training as well as their knowledge role, which is really concerning in some respects. But it depends on how, I guess, new or fresh they are to call center environments. There's that induction process into their own call centers, and then there's in their induction into our organization of how, you know, we want things to run, and then there is the type of calls. So there is a sort of progression into the type of calls they might answer, and they try to keep that like let's answer some simple calls to start off with, and then we can then move up into the more complex one, given, you know, experience and I guess team leader assessments and things like that of them as their ability and their capacity to take on the more complex calls or the more challenging calls in there. So whilst they don't get a lot of training, and as I say, they might get a daily pack update. So the change management process is to, you know, it comes out at 10 o'clock at night. So the 8 a.m. shift might get, you know, 30 seconds of quick, have a look, there's a new pack, this was what's changed, but because they don't always get a morning briefing in, but then it might be, you know, during their breaks, or as they'll get an allocated time depending on the call levels to go through the pack slowly and look at what's changed in there. So we need to have some excellent change management processes, as far as we've made a change, here's the change, here's what the impact is, and that's what it said before, so you know what the difference is. So yeah, there are lots of challenges around how quickly we must do training and how quickly we do you know, onboarding and things like that, and even that's being tweaked and fine-tuned constantly, because we don't always get it right, definitely don't always get it right. So yeah.
Thank you.
Sarah, did you have a question?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks. Thanks, Lynn, for the presentation. Just a couple of quick things. I think, you know, as knowledge managers now, part of the challenge is always about reducing the amount of content people are, you know, confronted with in the world, and the number of systems they have to interact with, and just like that, kind of trying to simplify so that people have a better experience accessing the knowledge they need to answer questions. How are you approaching that? Because it sounds like you've got, you know, how are you identifying redundant content and trying to consolidate so that people are just confronted with less?
Yeah, we've definitely been looking at that as we go along. So the directions stuff, we've actually found quite a lot of not redundancy so much, we'll say challenges. How's that? So because of the frequency of updates, and I guess the many hands that have been engaged in it, that sometimes you'd see 3 or 4 things repeated on a slide that are actually saying the same thing, but because this person wrote this 6 months ago, and then whilst it changed or the numbers changed, it's still the same thing, but they added an extra line in when they probably didn't need the extra line. So yeah, we're finding that as we go and look at the content from the original writers. So what we hope to do is we'll set up some of those workflows and those editorial approvals, I think, for the content creation around the go live times and things like that, so that we can look at what are the challenges with the content. It'll be an interesting discussion, given that we'll be talking to people, lawyers who don't always speak English, as in grammatically. So yeah, so there's always a challenge talking to lawyers around how we want our language to be more people focused, and think about, you know, answering the call of the people as opposed to writing something that's airtight. So that will definitely be a challenge, and still is a challenge, always a challenge as it, with it, but they will be the content owners. So I guess in part answering your question, Brad, they will write the content in the end. We're in part copying and also tweaking a little some of the language, but the intent is to hand that back to them so that they can take that ongoing. I'm hoping that someone will be a governor of the system long term. I don't know what that will be or mean. I'm praying, so, because I can just imagine what a schmozzle will be if there's not. But yeah, in fact, I think that's a conversation I'm having, because we're responding to, you know, it's a response team. We're getting, I think, quarterly contract updates if we're willing to do. So
SharePoint governance, how we love you. I'm also in the process of migrating a system to SharePoint at the moment, and onboarding the users into the new system. And I am really interested in your rollout approach. We're thinking about our strategy, and thinking about just opening up the SharePoint database as soon as we have a decent volume of content in there, so that the people who want to use that, who prefer to use that, can use it, and it will give us a way to identify, I guess, the people who are less comfortable moving. Because if we just have one like go live date, we're not going to be able to identify the people who actually need support to onboard into the new system, and the people who we're just going to annoy because they're fine, just start working in SharePoint, you know. So I'm interested in whether you've had that that conversation internally as well.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the same sort of thing. The bookings part of the system has been ready to go for a couple of months. We found a little tiny team that was our test team, who they've got about 10 people who answer calls about tests, and they've been ready and their team's been playing with it, but and we want them to get in and start using it, but no one sort of said, yes, go use, you can use it now. So we've got some hesitancy at leadership level about that, but they still look at it. I know they're looking at it and using that sort of as a guide, a training guide for some of their people. So stuff is ready, and I really want to. It's all open, and I've got, you know, so many people who've got visibility of the site, and I'm ready almost just to say, like, everyone can look at it, because you know, I want them to use it. So if we wait for a formal go live, we're just sort of, I think in some ways we're hamstringing ourselves, because we're losing that our ability to test and learn along the way. So it
must just be annoying to have to update in 2 places.
Well, yeah, I don't
everything.
update the packs, so that's the thing. So I will receive the pack, and then we're translating that pack in there. So yeah, I'm fiddling a lot, and they could be doing it themselves, but they're not quite ready to do that. So I'll handhold them, but yeah, I'm basically duplicating their work at this point in time. So yeah. Vanessa, I think you were next before Shah. I think I saw that.
Yeah. So I don't know if my question's out of scope or not, but I guess I'm curious about, so in situations where you've got somebody who's needing to quarantine versus somebody who, hypothetically, if we had versus somebody that's inquiring about vaccination versus somebody who's actually a diagnosed case, in terms of whether or not, in terms of designing the KM system, there's also a process whereby those clients who have been at the other end of those situations are actually interviewed, being the academic, the researcher, as in understanding their experience of the process to actually inform the design of not only the KM system that you're building, but I guess broader business processes, right? Because there are lots of different, I've been involved in 2 of those processes as a client. Fortunately, not the 3rd as yet, but even from that perspective, I'm kind of like, oh, hang on a minute, I'm wondering why they're doing it like this, because there's a bit of inconsistency, shall we say? Can't even say the word. I'm just wondering about those sorts of efforts.
All right. So, yeah, I know that whilst I don't get direct access to some of that, we do voice of the agent and voice of citizen feedback. So any feedback that comes through the telephone calls definitely come through. We also do quality checking on the calls and all that sort of stuff. They might pick out randomly, half a dozen calls a week per type to get some feedback in there. People are very vocal. Our recipients or the callers are very vocal about how they feel about things, and will certainly be very quick in letting us know if things aren't quite working. By the same token, I'm also aware of things aren't quite working internally as well. So I think about our data options for uploading our contact lists, if you like, and there are some real challenges in there. There's too much hands-on of copying and pasting from Excel spreadsheet to Excel spreadsheet. So talking about better ways to do data transformation and things like that. So send your feedback. The third part of that is that I've been engaged with our they're called correspondence feedback team, but basically the group of people that get the complaints formally through the website and telephones, the inquiries from our MPs and all those other important people. And I am engaged with them about our content. And in fact, they're in there having a look at the content as well. So they're the people that are following up why there might be a break in communication or a challenge or a problem. And so we definitely listen to them and reflect back on what we might fix or change in some of that stuff as well. So there are definitely many ways that we can get that end party's view of what's going on or what's not working. And feel free to send all that stuff in. I reckon as much as they know that we can improve on is definitely pretty important.
Thanks.
Shah, I can see
Thanks,
questions.
Lynn. That was a great presentation. Thank you very much for that. Just it's sort of related to training and but it's a bit wider than that. It's a question around people are relying pretty heavily on what's been documented. I was wondering whether there's also the capacity to actually have experts, so people who are very good at what they do, to be able to impart that expertise to others. So not just the reliance on documents, but also to have that experts, sort of coaching people, perhaps people being able to sit and listen, shadow people who are very good at what they're doing, so that kind of knowledge is passed on. Whether that's something that's feasible. I mean, obviously it's a high pressure environment and probably very difficult to do that, but was there any thought given to that more kind of dynamic exchange of that knowledge?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the same time I was employed, a couple of training people were employed as well. So they're looking at the coaching and leadership and mentoring elements of not just the induction process, but ongoing. How do we get the best out of our people and the best out of our team leaders? So the two parts of that. Definitely the third party call centers have a lot of those activities in play anyway. And you know what? The Teams toolkits and all that sort of stuff for sharing things that they learn or the voice of the citizen stuff is actually makes a huge difference in how we hear about some of these things nowadays. It's really cool in that respect, in that it's almost immediate rather than an email coming in the next day saying, yesterday we heard there was a problem with this. We're getting immediate sort of feedback to say, right, we've heard there's a problem. This citizen said this, or the challenge of I see Clinton said about different information between operators and different households getting different stories. So those sort of challenges are based around, someone's got this pack and someone's got this pack. So the information that person was getting is not the same information that they were getting. The other thing is that the call scripts often get updated daily. So these tools such as Teams enable us to get the feedback straight away of what those challenges are, but also then enable some coaching or mentoring to happen almost immediately for some of these people if the call feedback is around negativity. I know sometimes we get complaints about sounding robotic too, but when you have to read a script verbatim, it's sometimes hard not to sound robotic. So yes, we're trying to improve some of that buddying, mentoring, coaching elements to get the best skills out of people in there as well. So April's asked about measures, or yes, well, apart from the ones that I mentioned that I would like, my measures of success are, and it's still been a bit of a challenge, but we're trying to do some time and motion stuff, which it's one of the key ways I can show that I'm adding value. This is how they did things. This is how long it took them when they were talking on a call. And I know average handling time is not what I want to look at. What I want to look at in the call is how much time they took to look for information. So sort of time and motion. So if they, as part of their, now some of our outbound calls can take up to half an hour, but as part of their call, if it took them 3 minutes using the old way of looking at the content in the pack to find the information they need because they're doing a search inside a PowerPoint pack and that's not quite the right information, I have to find for something else, versus it might take them 2.5 minutes to find it on the knowledge base site. I'm even hopeful, 4 seconds will be an improvement. 4 seconds, when you multiply that by, I think we've been at one stage 1400 FTE, is a significant amount of dollar improvement. So that will be the measures that I'll be looking at for management to say, yes, you've spent this much money on me over the last 6 months, but here's the value that I'm going to add for you based on time saved for finding content. And then also, hopefully, some of that voice of the citizen, voice of the agent feedback will be improved as well. So I'm hoping to measure some of those things as well. But the key piece there will be around hopefully some time savings, and therefore time is money. Management love that stuff, don't they? All right, who else has got owners of the systems? Brad, did I answer that? No. I won't be the ongoing owner. I will be looking at the content owners being responsible for content and finding the right team. There is an operations team that sits in the organization as opposed to the third party. I'm assuming that someone in there will potentially be, there's a quality leader in there, so potentially they may take that on, I don't know, but hopefully there'll be someone who can take on the ongoing governance, if you like.
So is that a conversation at a leadership level? Going, hey, it'd be
yes, definitely.
How do we plan the transition for this?
What happens? What happens after the 31st of December if I decide not to stay, or if they decide not to keep me after the 31st of December? Who knows? As I say, I know I'll find out that conversation tomorrow. But it's sort of like, well, what do you want me to do after that? I mean, we've done all this stuff and I've helped out in the other areas and all that sort of stuff, but this is not my ongoing role. You've got me here as it's a project. It's always been a project, and the project is at a point that can be handed over. So then the ongoing role is who is going to be responsible for the ongoing governance and the ongoing templates and mechanisms and approvals and all that sort of stuff. So do they need an editor? Do they need a manager? I don't know. And where is that going to sit in the department? So interesting conversations, definitely. So.
And I guess also, Lynn, like where your work connects up with other sort of parts of the Department of Health as well, whether there's synergies there too.
Yeah, so I had a call last week about from the cyber people. I can't remember what her name, cyber. Anyway, she was talking about the cyber education program that we did as part of induction, which was a generalist run rather than a organizational focused one, which was pretty cool. I actually thought it was a really well bought piece of LMS gear. So, but she wants to do some reminders about their responsibilities for, being safe in a cyber connected world. And it's just like, well, how can I do that? Well, so I, of course, talked to her about the fact that we're now also connecting perhaps an LMS out with our third parties. But yes, this site will enable us to share some of that content in there as well. So we can build some training, guidance and support stuff in there as well, because it will be open to all of them. And then perhaps some of that, facilitation, buddying, mentoring stuff, seeking feedback, whatever else, we'll be able to get into other parts of the organisation and who need to connect out with the people who are taking calls on their behalf, and whatever they need shared with them, we can look at how we can share that with them, definitely, and we'll open ourselves up to that. Yeah.
So, Lynn, quite apart from this current crisis that they're dealing with, are there other areas that they cover currently with PowerPoint packs that are potentially looking on going, maybe we could do this as well?
Well, yeah, I'm assuming that the other people that used to ring up about other diseases that still happen, they will need something ongoing. So I'm assuming that this won't die a complete death in a couple of years' time. I'm assuming there'll be some easier way for them, hopefully, to manage this ongoing, because those they didn't have anything on for them prior to that. I'm quite sure how they managed that, and I don't. As I say, some of them are clinicians and medical people that don't actually work within the department, so they might have their own ways of managing that anyway. But I've no doubt there will be a need for some of those other things to have some sort of knowledge base in place. So hopefully it won't be a waste.
Yeah, and
I
guess with some of those, fortunately, there aren't the kind of surge in numbers and rapid changes in how you respond or how you treat that there have been currently.
I'm assuming there's been a Word document in house that's done quite an adequate job over the last couple of tens of years or whatever to manage that. So, but there's also been a challenge where the organisation has sort of separated in two separate parts in the middle of this because of this crisis in some respects. So it was combined a few years back to include families and things, and now that's been separated out as two different departments. So I'm assuming that potentially those other areas might need some support and assistance. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah.
Lynn, have you worked in government before? Because it obviously sounds like you hit the ground running really fast on this one.
Oh, way back when I was very, very much younger than I am today. I worked at Centrelink. Sorry, I worked at the Department of Social Security. That's how old I am. So, and even in the 12 months in the middle when it didn't have a name, it was called the CSDA. So yes, I worked at, my job straight out of school was Vet Affairs First and the Artificial Limb and Appliance Centre. There's a thing for you. There used to be a federal government funded repatriation limb centre for our war veterans who had lost a limb or who needed prosthetics and orthotics as well. So it was not the most pleasant of jobs, but the poor old men who got orthotics who lived in the country, we used to send their shoes in by mail that came in via Vic Rail, and I got to unwrap them out of their plastic bags and open up all these old men's shoes that needed new orthotics. It was very pleasant. But also the Artificial Limb and Appliance Centre also managed prosthetics for people that weren't just war veterans, and met and saw some amazing things, as you can imagine. So that was Vet Affairs, then Social Security. Yes, I've been there, done that. Yeah. And had some interesting times. Back in the day when the Social Security had a little element of choice, or you could decide whether you wanted to help someone or not, if you like. Special benefits, they used to call them. So those that people weren't eligible for unemployment or sickness benefits could potentially apply for special benefit, and they had to meet some requirements. But so
Then I'll just throw a really quick comment in. If you haven't seen this video, anyone on the call, you should look it up. It's on YouTube somewhere. But there was this really funny video made fairly early on in the COVID about all of the other diseases, having a board meeting about how COVID was hogging all of the attention and resources. It's just hilarious. And they're all bitching and carrying on about, and COVID couldn't even be bothered coming to the meeting, If you haven't seen it, just look for it. It's hilarious. Probably cool. Stuart's already found the link. That's what he usually does when I make comments like that.
Right, yeah, and it's probably, it's very right, because we had feedback from the tuberculosis line that the phone lines have been so chockers and busy, and I don't know why anyone ever saw this coming and didn't separate out these phone lines, that people have just been pressing any old number. So even the tuberculosis line keeps getting calls about our current health crisis, and are not happy about it, because they're getting hundreds of calls a day instead of the usual one a week maybe. So it's sort of like, I'm sure that all of the other diseases are very unhappy at this point in time. So particularly if they all have to ring the same phone number.
It's a good question around governance. Is there any governance around development of all the KM stuff that's happening? Is there policy?
Well, so the lawyers are looking after the instructions. I believe they get lawyers looking at the bookings scripting, if you like. There's lots of so there is governments at that end, so we try to stick to what we've been told to do, but occasionally we might feed back language, or we want to make it accessible. And as I said earlier, sometimes some of that language is not so accessible when you're trying to read that out to the person at the end of the phone line, and it just, oh my god, it just sounds so wooden and I'm not quite sure what you're telling me anyway. So we try and feed that back as we've been writing stuff. So
hey, Lynn, can I ask a quick question? How are you approaching your content testing?
We've used that small team, and got them to get in. We found they had a lot of stuff that wasn't written down, that had been in there. They've shared, hey, boss, how do I look at this? What do I answer this call? So a lot of ad hoc stuff that wasn't quite written down. So we've managed to capture some of that. So we've done lots of work with them going through the motion. we're actually also relying on some of those externals to be a bit more critical in their feedback of us, and they're very keen to get in and do a bit more of the testing than what we've already done. So yeah, absolutely. Can you go in and answer a couple of calls with these? We are actually allowing them to, and suggesting to them they'll do some live calls, but also they're going to use some onboarding training with it as well. So
have you done any testing workshops, or is it all just like
no time for all that stuff?
Yeah.
There's no time for that. It should have been live. It actually should have been live. I wanted it to be live about a month ago, but yeah.
I'd be frustrated.
Hey, twinning part of my job.
Is there? Have you got any on-page tips for like accessing content? Like I'm thinking about like when you onboard people into a new system, is there on-page instruction rather than having separate instruction?
So I'm not building packs, I'm putting it all inside the SharePoint. So under the help, I've got a help menu, and we're building pages of a category. So all of our content has a category. So if you're booking, but you're booking for, maybe this type of drug, or if you're booking for this age group, we've got all these categories for all those elements. And we're also building pages that says, all right, this category of this age group, here's all the pages that has that category on it. So trying to enable different ways to find the content. So with them doing one page, well, I've built pages on using the normal search bar. I've got pages of using how to flow through a process, but also then how to look at categories and site names and all that, and tagging and all that sort of stuff. So building all of that in. I've even got pages in there for the subject matter experts on how to create a new page step by step into here's where we've stored the image assets, and here's where we've done this, and building all that, how to find the version history, what you can see in the version history. SharePoint Online yesterday gave me a we've now got sections that can do the twisty thing, so we can have hidden windows. Hurrah! That came to us yesterday, and so I've built a page today with the questions around version history, what I can do on that today. So just trying to take on as much as possible. Hi, Kat. We're trying to build it all inside the system, so they won't need paper training guides or anything like that, because it's just a waste of time. So yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
Anyone else have any questions? I've got to say, Lynn, that 2 weeks ago, I actually rang up the helpline because I was trying to find out a way that I could possibly go from Thornbury to my beach house down Great Ocean Road. And I got such a great response. Woman was right onto it. And then I said, I can't find it on the website because I couldn't find it. And she said, no, it's here. It's under this. It's under maintenance. And I went away very happy. I mean, I didn't get the answer I really wanted, of course. Sure, you can go down. No, whatever. But I was really impressed, actually. I was really impressed because I didn't want to spend half an hour on the website trying to sort it out. But yeah, she was really good. And she also said, look, this is what I'm reading. I'm not telling you must do this or you can't do that. So I was impressed.
Yeah, it's all meant to be guidance and not, and what they do call them instructions and directives. So some of them are definitely directives, and some of it is saying, well, no, as from the way I'm reading this, I don't think you can do that. So yeah.
Well, if you think you've got something wrong with the septic tank, anyway, I was just investigating the angles, but I was impressed. Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
So,
Cesar, I can see Cesar's got a hand up.
Hello. Thank you so much for the presentation. I'm sorry I had to duck out. And whilst we have Arthur on the call, so we're all free right now and Christmas is just around the corner. I was wondering whether we're actually going to organize a Christmas get-together, get to finally meet each other, get out of our homes. Is that a thought that we can maybe, visit or revisit?
I think that would be a great thing to do. We don't usually sort of have a Christmas party as such, do we? But I think given the year and everything, it would be really nice if we could all come together somewhere, sort of fairly central for everyone.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's a great way to have a chat, to connect, have a beer, have a burger, or a tofu salad.
Yeah, definitely worthwhile. April was asking that question as well, Cesar. December is normally a bit of a get-together to talk about what's going to happen next year, and we'll make sure that that's open and ideally face-to-face. I think November, we're not really sure yet, but we'll make an announcement, you know, on the November site quite soon. But absolutely, I think it's going to be really good to try and get together. December is, of course, always in the second week, not the fourth week. Some guy has his birthday in the fourth week of December. So it'll be really good to get back together again, and you know, whether we just bring a plate or book out a restaurant or whatever, you know, that would be fantastic. So yes is the answer.
Awesome, thank you.
Bring your vac certificate with you.
So it's on my phone. It's on my phone. Have you
Oh
all
my
downloaded? Have you
goodness.
all downloaded it on your phone?
I did it today.
If you've already got your Medicare connected to MyGov, it's pretty easy. If you haven't, it's a nightmare. But
Yeah, just don't click international COVID vaccine certificate.
don't do that. No,
Yeah,
don't.
click on your history. You got to click the history button. Yeah.
And I know you can't actually say anything. Let's forget all the things you've already said. But,
I try, because otherwise I had, like, my boss said to me a few weeks back when I said, "Oh, I'm going to do one," and she said, "Oh, yeah, well, you have to get your presentation approved." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay,
yeah." How many stops are you away from Duro and Weimar?
3.
Oh, okay.
Have cool things like, you know, Paul Kelly comes on and does a Teams meeting and sings a song for us as a thank you. So, you know, after we got vaccinated. Yeah. So, no, Giro, and I'm only about 3 or 4. I've got an executive director, an executive director, and then I think Jeroen. Yeah. So not far, 3. Yeah. That's right.
Apparently he's a big pussycat.
I haven't seen him in person. I've only seen him online. But yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, that's all
like,
we'll say.
Look, the only like I've seen like he's done some really cool prezos in house that I think they probably, you know, skip through on a press conference, but stuff like, you know, they'll do some charts for us to say the Burnett Institute told us this. If we didn't lock down, you know, it would have been 6,000, not 2,000 a day, and all that sort of stuff. And you go, well, you know, I know we're now at not trying to be COVID zero. We're just trying to reduce the risk, but 6,000 versus 2,000, it's still a lot, isn't it? It's 2,000's a lot, but 6,000 cases a day sounds horrendous. It sounds like we're in America, so we don't want that. So
exactly.
Some of our private things, you know, in-house things are really interesting. But hey, Paul Kelly concerts in-house too is pretty cool. So.
Legend.
Except no one turned off the Teams notification, so everyone that made a comment while he was singing, it went ding 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 ding. I was like, But some people don't know how to use Teams. It's because you could have turned that off because it was a webinar, not a meeting as such. Yeah. Can't have it. The world's not perfect.
No, it's
Hey,
not.
listen, for those of you who don't know, Teams has got praise in it now, so you can now send people thanks or well done or good cheerleader and all that sort of stuff in Teams, as of what came to us this week. Same with my sections in SharePoint. There's some good stuff around, so
nice.
Keep track of those if you use that in your office. But yeah.
And with the praise, is there a workflow structure going to the manager to say I got so many praises for the month of October or November?
I haven't looked at it the other end. I'm just going to go and send praises to everybody in my team and say, great job, guys, pat in the back sort of thing.
We need a thoughts and praise one as well.
Yeah, thoughts and praise.
I love your optimism, Cesar. I mean, you know, sort of praise is usually hidden. You know, it's like, you know, if you're happy, tell us. If you're unhappy, tell us. If you're happy, then tell as many people as you can. But it normally works in reverse, right?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We should probably wrap up the recording, and then it's kind of broken out into a socialization now. So, which is great, and that's what we usually plan at the end of this, so that people can connect